When we think about globalization, what do we see? Some may see a concept of tragedy and disadvantages, while others see a concept of growth and benefits to our society. Today, we are going to be taking a look at my views on the subject and also analyze a timeline of historic events. Interested? Then stay tuned. To get started, I want to take a look at a timeline of historical events that made globalization what it is today. But to see the bigger picture, sometimes we have to just get a little bit closer. Our dive into history starts in 130 BCE during the Silk Road, but that's not what we are talking about today. I've selected 5 key events in our history to represent my opinions on if globalization has benefited or done harm to our society. The first key event that we are going to be looking at today is the Renaissance. In my opinion, the Renaissance is the first real key example of this idea of globalization blowing up. During the Renaissance, the increase on the spread of ideas and tools was massive. Merchants found new sea routes, technologies were shared with other cultures, and countries reached never-before-seen continents and places. With all this combined, I would say that the Renaissance is a key moment in our history, and therefore it needs to be ranked highly. The scramble for Africa is going to be my next key moment during the world's history in terms of globalization. Now, for this one, yes, there was tons of awful things that happened, abuse, exploitation, etc. But if we keep in mind that we are thinking from a viewpoint of what advanced globalization, the scramble for Africa was beneficial to spreading ideas from all around the world into one singular continent. Nations from all around the world took their own ideas and brought them into Africa, therefore becoming a key event in the history of globalization. Our next key event that's straight after the scramble for Africa is the white man's burden. Now, this is going to be our first key event that actually hindered globalization. These ideas that only white men were good and only white men could save everyone else were terrible. The fact that the white man's burden extends out way further than you realize just makes it 10 times worse. Those beliefs led to school segregation, residential schools, and so much more. Also, slavery was helped by this idea. These ideas completely stopped globalization rather than helping it reach its full potential. It held the same ideas with the same group of people and stopped the spread of good ideas to countries that were populated by people of color. The internet is our next key event. Now, this is also a very two-edged sword, as the internet use fully depends on the person behind the screen. In general, I think that the internet propelled the spread of ideas to an all-time high, making it so that we can chat with people and communicate with people from all across the world in a matter of seconds. If you think about it, no one really has ever had anything like this before. Ideas can never spread as fast as they do these days. Like, if you think about it, a Twitter rumor can literally go across the entire world in a matter of hours. Back in the day, these things would take months, maybe even years to spread, and unless it was valuable information, it wouldn't even spread at all, which also may be a point as to why the internet is bad. But nevertheless, I think that the internet might be the most important invention, maybe even ever, but it certainly does depend on the users behind it. Yes, the title of the video. Why the Great Depression has had the biggest impact on globalization. Now, I know what you're thinking. What? The Great Depression? The event that literally put a pause on all of the spread of ideas, all the spread of money, and literally everything? The event that killed 120 million people in the USA alone? Yes, that one. To really analyze the effects of this event, we have to look forward rather than at the event itself. During the Great Depression, economics were at an all-time low. Global leaders were forced to come up with new ways to fix this and ways to cope with this. For example, President Franklin D. Roosevelt worked around the clock to come up with his New Deal to attempt to fix the Depression. To really see the impact of this event, we need to look at all the new ideas that came out of the Depression to prevent something like this from ever happening again. Or as I'm going to put it, sometimes people need to experience the worst to eventually get to the best. Tons of new forms of economic systems and new ideas were put in place after the Great Depression. So I'm pretty sure that the Great Depression had a giant impact on globalization, at least if we're looking at it from the time that followed after the Great Depression. Okay, now that the timeline is done, and thank goodness it is, because that took forever, we can move on to bigger and better things, such as the main topic. Is globalization good or bad? Argument 1. It lets countries do what they do best. The first thing that helped me decide if globalization was good or not was thinking about this. When we have that factor of globalization in our world, it lets certain countries do what they do best and only focus on that one thing. For example, if we take a look at coffee, Brazil excels at producing coffee. So, it would make much more sense for Brazil to do all the making of coffee since they are the best at it, and then they can sell it to everyone else. In exchange, they can use that money to purchase whatever other goods they need from other countries that specialize in different things. Using this strategy, Brazil has managed to produce more than 5.6 billion pounds of coffee. This would definitely not be possible if it weren't for globalization. Argument number 2. Promotes world togetherness. In result of globalization, countries have been a lot more dependent on each other for help and support. For example, lots of countries need to trade with other countries to be able to continue to survive with the materials that they need to live. And if a country is in trades with another country, the likelihood of those two countries going into war significantly decreases. Another example of this togetherness would be government leaders promising to tackle environmental issues such as pollution and global warming together, so that the entire Earth can be safer. And I don't know about you guys, but I think we kinda need that in order to survive. So there's another great reason why we need globalization. Argument 3. Gives access to a larger market. This one kind of relates to my first point. When you have countries from all around the world specializing in specific things, you also gain access to a giant market. You can buy and sell a wide variety of things from all around the world instead of only being able to acquire things your country creates. This makes it so that all countries have close to the same level of opportunities, and also make it much easier for countries to buy things that they need without having to make them all inside of their own countries. This makes globalization almost a must-have in our world. All in all, I think that these three things combined can display a very good argument as to why I think that globalization actually benefits us and why we basically need it to survive and thrive. And there we go, my very last social video of the year. I'll make sure to leave my sources and my thesis statement right down below in the description so that you can easily find them later. That timeline took way too long to edit, so I also apologize for the late project, as always. But before I end off the video, I just wanted to say a couple things, because Jamie, you're leaving us! And it's pretty sad. So I don't know if this is going to be like presented in front of the whole class or if it's just you watching, but I wanted to say thank you for making social really fun this year. I enjoyed it the whole way through. Right from the very start, you had everything very well planned out and thought out. Projects were well done, and everything you taught like actually stuck with me. So I think it's safe to say that I can speak for all of us by saying you have been a pretty dang good unpaid intern and I know you'll make a great teacher in the future. So once again, I just wanted to say thank you. And yeah, anyways, enough with all that. I hope you enjoyed the video, and I'll see you in the not the next one, next year. We'll wait for next year. Anyway, thanks for watching, and yeah, have a Merry Christmas. So goodbye.